Season 2 of Citizen One begins now. I'm Douglas Stewart McDaniel, and this year we're pushing further into the heart of our cities and the edges of our imagination. From the ruins of Petra and Luxor to the climate forces reshaping cities and nations all over the world, from the fragility of smart city promises to the human-centered urban futures we can still choose to build. This season blends nonfiction and fiction, critique and creation, urbanism, narrative architecture, and speculative world-building and storytelling, all woven together into one unfolding conversation. This is Citizen One, exploring our urban future. The stories we tell shape the cities we build. Welcome back to the Season 2 premiere of Citizen One, exploring our urban future. I'm your host, Douglas Stewart McDaniel, currently back on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. This season, I'm changing up the rhythm and structure of Citizen One a bit. Each episode will include, as always, a deep exploration of a unique take on urbanism and the past, present, and future of cities, and then a segment on narrative architecture, a way of framing stories, speculative futures, and imagination around visual storytelling and world building, one of my favorite topics. But first, an update about the book. Due to seismic shifts in the global smart city arena, I regret to inform you that my book, Citizen One, will not be published this fall, but for a very good reason. I freely admit this feels a bit like when Bill Gates released The Road Ahead in 1995, and he barely mentioned the internet. He had to quickly rewrite a year later to keep up with a fast-moving new reality. I'd rather pause a book than miss or gloss over an important shift everyone will be talking about for some time to come about the future of cities. In particular, I'm setting off to do some sorely needed research on AI models that read satellite and geospatial sensor data that inform the resilience of cities. And I'm also working on a deeper focus on people-centered governance over gadget-centered innovation. Consider this a cautionary tale about underplaying not one, but multiple paradigm shifts that are happening simultaneously in one's field. I'll be honest, I've been wrestling with this for months, and it isn't a choice I make lightly. I'm pausing Citizen One as a book to better integrate these two fast-moving fronts, geospatial AI and rights-first urban governance. And I plan to return with a revised, evidence-heavy manuscript that reflects these new paradigms when I feel like it's ready. I'm in no rush because there are countless smart city projects and urban infill developments around the world that can be controversial, yes, but they too are also experiments. They're trying to answer the same ancient question. How do we make dense urban life more just and more livable? And how are new technologies like artificial intelligence going to either uplift or diminish our shared humanity? That, at its core, is Citizen One. And yes, while some of this new technology and AI remains hype, a lot of it is important and real and applicable in the near term. There is extraordinary progress in energy systems, in mobility, in how we think about the density and resilience of urban life. But there's also danger in the stories we're being sold. Too often, smart cities are framed as assets to be managed, not communities to be lived in. Dashboards track cars and cargo, but too often leave the human experience out of view. Surveillance can too often masquerade as safety. Efficiency is prioritized over equity. That's the split we face. Innovation on one side, exclusion on the other. The question isn't whether technology belongs in our cities. Of course it does. The question is whether it serves a broader civitas, the lived, messy, inclusive collective of people who give a city its soul. And here's where my work and my writing has been heading for some time. Increasingly, I believe the answer lies in what I call the cognitive infrastructure ecosystem. Think of it as an AI-driven nervous system for cities. Layers that, yes, sense the city, from satellites to street-level sensors, and learns how the city is moving, heating, flooding, breathing, or suffocating. And it adapts services in real time: mobility, energy, water, safety, not for abstract efficiency metrics, but not just for assets on a balance sheet, but for people, for communities, for the civitas, that shared role of rights, yes, but also responsibilities we have to each other and to our neighbors. Because cities aren't just machines we inhabit, they're agreements we make with each other. And unless this new layer of intelligence is better wired for inclusion, unless it strengthens trust, equity, and human complexity, we risk building highly efficient dystopias instead of resilient, livable futures. In the meantime, this Substack, the Citizen One podcast, and my broader writing can continue to evolve into my own living laboratory and proving ground, the place where these ideas and these stories are tested in real time. We'll move across centuries and continents: Petra, Luxor, Tangier, and yeah, today's mega projects and speculative cities and neighborhoods, and the pressing challenges of cities across the global south in particular. And then along the way, I want to weave in some new lines of historical fiction, science fiction, and visual storytelling. This is where the future of Citizen One lives first: in sound, in story, and in imagination, before it ever lives on a printed page. So now, let's jump into Season 2, Episode 1 of Citizen One, Exploring Our Urban Future. Welcome back if you're joining me again, and welcome if this is your first episode. Today's episode has two arcs. First, a road trip into what I call Waffle House urbanism, a story of resilience, sprawl, and the fragile state of America's built environment through the lens of the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And it includes a top 10 list of places in America that prove Waffle House urbanism doesn't have to be destiny. And then, in part 2, I have an exciting announcement on the world building and storytelling front about the launch of premium pulp fiction, beginning with my upcoming historical epic, Ashes of Empire, Ghost Emperor. Now to the present. Chapter 1, Waffle House Urbanism. We're in an age of unprecedented urban transformation, climate change, migration, explosive population growth across Africa, Asia, and the global south. But today, I'm not in Seoul or Riyadh or Barcelona. I'm back on the Mississippi Gulf Coast for a brief time, some of my old stomping grounds, surrounded by family and friends. Here, the air itself is heavy, humidity draped across your shoulders like a wet cloth. At dusk, no-see-ums bite at your ankles until they bleed. Shrimp boats idle in the harbors, their nets sagging like tired wings. Saltgrass bends in the wind along the marshes, and you can still see scars carved by Hurricane Katrina 20 years on. Empty slabs where houses once stood, twisted live oaks that somehow held on, and faces of your neighbors weathered by both storm and survival. Memory is etched here into the land, but also into the people who still refuse to leave it behind. It's a place that carries both beauty and ache. Salt marshes stretching under a gauzy sky, bayous winding like emerald arteries, and then the strip malls, the chain stores, the shrieking billboards, a geography of resilience colliding with a geography of sprawl. I want to bring you a story from here, from a road trip I took recently along the I-10 corridor with my friend Petey. We were only headed to a car service appointment, but what unfolded was a funny and whimsical reminder through the windshield that felt like a kind of soft apocalypse, a travelogue of sameness. Maybe I was more attuned to it because of my years in the Middle East and in Europe and in South America. But I was recognizing a built environment that felt really foreign and somehow leaves Waffle House as one of the last reliable civic institutions. And that's why I call this Waffle House urbanism. And it's the story of how America may have paved over resilience, replaced community with commerce, and left Waffle House to keep the lights on. So this is Chapter 1, Waffle House Urbanism and the Rapid Death of Human-Centered American Design. at highway speed. I rode with my friend Petey in her Mini Cooper down I-10 from Ocean Springs, Mississippi, across Alabama's Mobile Bay and over to Pensacola, Florida for a car service appointment, rolling through the kind of American landscape that should come with a warning label: abandon hope, all ye who merge here. The landscape is hauntingly beautiful stretch of coastal low country, marshes breathing under a vast, forgiving sky, bayous coiled like green serpents through the reeds that somehow survived the wrath of Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Tucked between these waterways are neighborhoods that have held on remarkably, porches still swept, crab traps still stacked, families still rooted. And yet, just beyond and between these pockets of endurance, the built environment starts falling apart. Strip malls slump beside gas stations, fast food chains flicker under sun-faded awnings, all of it spread across a flat, overheated sprawl of asphalt, a heat-sick mirage of sameness, and a distinct lack of walkability. This is Waffle House urbanism. Every mile coughs up a clone of the last. The same discount big box retail store, the same gaudy drive-through, the same shrieking billboards preaching Jesus, pushing personal injury lawsuits, advertising the nearest place to either shoot something up or to catch a matinee at a strip club with a $6 lunch buffet. It's not hopeless, but damn it, it hurts. Maybe I've been overseas too long, but shit, I expected more from you, America, not just bacon grease and melted asphalt. Waffle House didn't build this car-centric franchise-first wasteland, but it didn't exactly protest either. It survives it, profits from it, plays along as co-conspirator, index, anchor, and ghostlight. We'll get to that in a minute. So, urbanistically, what we're formally talking about here is urban development, or STRODs, a portmanteau of street and road, or just plain ugly commercial strip shopping centers, whatever urban planners with zero self-respect still bother to call it. This has become the de facto urban form in America. Fight me. I dare you. It's now a ubiquitous American landscape where highways are no longer a means to get somewhere, but the entire reason places exist. It's not a city, not a town, not even a road in the traditional sense. It's a strode, that bastardized hybrid design for neither speed nor connection. Just raw commercial throughput. An endless expanse of asphalt and signage, engineered more for transaction than for habitation. There was a time when highways were all about the American dream and the open road, about movement and freedom. Now they just seem to become conveyor belts for chain stores and cheap land deals. You don't often arrive anywhere, you just sort of pass through. Towns used to be built around squares, downtowns, train stations, or some central feature. Now they're built around interstate exits, the true anchor of modern American settlement. And unlike actual cities, this version of America isn't just car-centric, it's commerce-centric. The entire built environment exists to make sure you never leave your vehicle, God forbid, except to buy something. Want to walk? Tough luck. Want a public space where you can sit without being obliged to purchase something? Good luck. This is what Waffle House urbanism has done. It has stripped cities down to their barest commercial function, replacing places of meaning with places of monetization. Gone are town squares, cafes, or public benches, replaced by drive-throughs, massage parlors, and payday loan centers. Its urban form is dictated by the lowest common denominator capitalism: cheap, disposable, and as predictable as the menu at a truck stop Denny's. This is transactional architecture, the physical manifestation of short-term profit thinking. And yet, in the middle of this landscape, Waffle House thrives. There is a reason FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, uses the Waffle House Index to measure hurricane severity, especially here on the Gulf Coast. If your local Waffle House closes, shit just got real. If it's running on a limited menu, the disaster is bad, but not catastrophic. If the Waffle House is still open, you're going to be fine. This isn't because Waffle House is good at disaster logistics, although it is. It's because Waffle House is perhaps the most resilient part of this commercially built environment. When the power goes out, Waffle House has backup generators. When supply chains break down, Waffle House somehow adapts. When everything else fails, Waffle House somehow figures it out. Meanwhile, the rest of Waffle House urbanism, the highways, the parking lots, the strip malls, the other retailers, is fragile as hell. When a hurricane hits, these places flood, collapse, or simply become unusable because they were never built to last. They were built for maximum short term profit with minimum long term resilience. Waffle House survives because it has to. Nothing else in this urban hellscape can be relied upon. So, if Waffle House can plan for hurricanes, why can't we build cities that do the same? Because Waffle House urbanism at its core isn't about resilience. It's about cheap sprawl, fast profits, and the illusion of accessibility. It works for real estate developers, good old boys and girls, gas stations, chain restaurants, and car dealerships. It does not work for the people who actually need places to live. Floods? Too bad. Your home is built in a floodplain because zoning laws were written by developers, and you can't afford wind, hail, or flood insurance anyway. You just have to try to rat hole enough money every year in case you have to rebuild your house. No public transit? That sucks, but you should have bought a car like everybody else. Did the hurricane just wipe out half the town? Well, don't worry, they're going to rebuild the exact same thing because that's what the market demands. This is somehow what America has accepted as normal. A built environment so disposable, so temporary that we just assume it may be wiped out every decade or so and rebuilt exactly the same way, just maybe not for you this time, maybe for people with more income or more insurance. So for me, Waffle House urbanism is not a city, it is a franchise model of urbanism. Every highway gets the exact same features. Home Depot, Chick-fil-A, a Planet Fitness, Target, until the next natural disaster, economic downturn, or corporate bankruptcy wipes the slate clean and the cycle starts over. But it doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to keep doubling down on a system that fails the second something goes wrong. We do know what works. Dense, walkable communities that don't require you to drive 30 minutes for your basic needs. Mixed use developments where homes, businesses, and public spaces actually interact. Infrastructure designed for climate resilience instead of just paving over wetlands and hoping for the best. Public spaces that aren't just malls or, hey, Waffle Houses. Writing heat, flood, shade, and safe crossings into code as human rights so that resilience becomes mandatory and not optional. To be fair, Waffle House is not the villain here. It's just a symptom of the problem. The reason Waffle House feels like an oasis in this wasteland is because it's one of the last places where America still has a pulse. It's a third space, a third place in a world where third places are disappearing. It's consistent in an environment designed to be ephemeral. But if nothing changes, Waffle House urbanism will eventually drown. The American built environment, especially on our coastal regions, is not failing. It's succeeding at what it was designed to do, to serve profit over people. But climate change doesn't care about your property values. And at some point, the insurance companies will decide that some of these places aren't worth rebuilding. The water will come. The storms will get worse. And then what? Well, the Taco Bell and the Wendy's will close. The gas station will finally shut down. And the Waffle House will finally lock its doors. And when that happens, we'll know America has finally run out of road. So, as part of an epilogue here or a sidebar, I've put together a top 10 list of places in America that prove Waffle House urbanism isn't destiny. And you can read more about this on the Substack. There's an article posted there as well. So, as I've explained, Waffle House urbanism is this dystopian dreamscape, hellscape of late stage capitalist urbanism. A built environment engineered for cars, franchises, and throughput, where human-centered design has been paved over by asphalt, signage, and sameness. It's the logical end game of strode development, zoning dysfunction, and profit-first planning. A place where every highway exit looks like the last, Every public space is privatized, and resilience is outsourced to the nearest 24-hour diner. So, just to recap, here are some of those key characteristics of Waffle House urbanism: franchise monoculture as civic identity, infrastructure built for transactions and not habitation, erasure of walkability, memory, and meaningful public spaces that I've now witnessed all over the world and that matter. Doesn't have to be built this way. Short-term profits over long-term resilience, architectural sameness designed to be disposable, and climate fragility built into the system by default. This isn't a glitch. It's the system working exactly as it was designed. It's the black mirror of suburbia, where community is reduced to a drive-through lane and culture flickers from flat screens on gas pumps, barking soda ads into the void. But to challenge this aesthetic is to insist on cities that are livable, memorable, and built to last. And the good news is we can already see some examples. After checking out all that melted asphalt and franchise malaise as 20 plus cars lined up in a Starbucks drive-through, maybe you're wondering, is this it? Is this the end of the road? Is America really just a never-ending strode with a Chick-fil-A and a Starbucks on every corner and a Waffle House keeping the lights on until the floods return? Well, not quite. There are places, real, functioning, actual places that defy this corporate monoculture. Places built with intention, with memory, walkability, human scale, and public life at their core. So here are 10 districts across the U.S. that break the mold and remind us of what urbanism can still be. So starting in 10th place, I want to highlight the Pearl District in Portland, Oregon, a former rail yard reimagined into one of America's most walkable, transit-connected, mixed-use gems. Art galleries, lofts, bookstores, and micro parks. One of my favorite features of any city. A place where people, not parking lots, come first. So number 9 is South Congress, or SoCo, in Austin, Texas. It's not your typical Texas sprawl in a land of remarkable sprawl, but SoCo has local weirdness, music history, sidewalk life, and food trucks under a canopy of live oaks. It's the anti-strip mall. Another place I've stayed before, was up there for the Cincinnati Film Festival, is at number 8, Over the Rhine in Cincinnati, built across an old canal, actually. Gentrification tensions aside, which is, of course, always a part of the equation. This is one of the most impressive urban revitalizations in America. Great historic bones, still has streetcars, and a fierce commitment to adaptive reuse. Now, number 7, I've also been here at Fishtown in Philadelphia. Working class grit meets indie edge. Row homes, murals, beer halls, and bikes. It, again, is gentrifying, but it is still full of soul. Now, when I'm in Atlanta, coming in at number 6 is the Old Fourth Ward. It's my favorite neighborhood to stay at in Atlanta. Once forgotten, old warehouses and remarkable housing stock had been long forgotten, but seems to now be a blueprint for the future. Anchored by the Beltline, it's got parks, trails, markets, and a density that doesn't feel like a planning spreadsheet. And it's easy to walk around there and allow yourself still to get lost in the city. Number 5 is downtown Santa Fe, New Mexico. A great place to live and to inhabit. You can plan with culture and still have a pulse. Of course, the Adobe architecture reigns supreme there, but it's that walkable scale, actual plazas like you would see in Europe, and a timelessness that beats anything born in a franchise boardroom. Another great place up at Capitol Hill in Seattle, Washington. High density, a lot of queer culture, public transit, and enough coffee and protest energy to power a small country. And it definitely is urbanism with some additional attitude. Coming in at number 3 is the North Loop in Minneapolis. A lot of lofts, a lot of bike lanes, riverfront, and smart planning without losing that industrial edge. And I think that's proof that cold cities could still be hotbeds of some design intelligence and lessons that we can learn and apply to other cities, neighborhoods, and districts around the country. And coming in at number 2, I thought about giving it a number 1, but still, I'm still torn here. But downtown Savannah, Georgia, a city I briefly called home before relocating to Saudi Arabia and then Barcelona. It's a 300-year-old walkable street grid with so many of its original public squares and plazas. It's still better than anything we've come up with in the 300 years since. You've got these garden squares, public spaces, a lot of tree shade and walkability baked into the DNA of the city. And then, yes, the tech invasion is probably responsible for a lot of it. And yes, the prices and the gentrification and the challenges of balancing homelessness and addiction and mental health. But number one, the Mission District in San Francisco, um, it's still a great place to feel one of the most alive, legible, and human neighborhoods in the country. And it's something, we cannot nor should we give up on, because the Mission District in San Francisco has maintained its unique character and vibrancy, distinguishing itself from the more commercially dense downtown area. While we all know that downtown San Francisco is undergoing so many significant challenges, including proposals for new high-rise developments and revitalization efforts, the Mission District still has this community-centric atmosphere. And some recent updates include some new infill housing, anti-displacement buys, new EV infrastructure. And while downtown is focusing more on broad recovery, I've got some sources in the notes on the Substack as well, with some links to some of the more interesting projects going on there. But overall, the Mission District appears to be faring pretty well, balancing some of those new developments with community preservation, while downtown San Francisco is concentrated on economic recovery and those infrastructural enhancements. So I put this list together as a reminder to why placemaking matters in America, in a monoculture of sameness. Because these places prove that Waffle House urbanism is not destiny, and because the American landscape didn't always look like this and doesn't have to keep looking like this, and because somewhere between the Waffle House and the floodplain, we can still choose to build differently. Chapter 2, Introducing Premium Pulp Fiction. So I am super excited about this second segment on Citizen One, Exploring Our Urban Future, where we're going to go back a few millennia. And there's a reason, a really good reason. So this segment is on world building, storytelling, and the launch of Premium Pulp Fiction, a new literary imprint that's going to be home to my forthcoming fiction novels, beginning with my upcoming historical epic novel, Ashes of Empire, Ghost Emperor, coming in early 2026. So let's dive in. Every city is a story, even ancient Babylon, how it was built, how it worked, what gods were worshipped there. And so as a story, a city is not a metaphor, it's a fact. Cities are imagined before they are built. From the carved thresholds of Petra to the pylons of Luxor, the places we inherit were designed not only to shelter people, but to embody power, belief, and survival. That act of imagining, of turning ideas into places, is now what we call world building. And it isn't just ancient. It's the foundation of what I've been working on with my friend and collaborator, Olivier Prawn, one of the great concept artists and visual storytellers of our time. Over the summer, as you may have seen in a prior episode, Olivier and I set up camp in the Dordogne in southwest France for about 2 weeks, deep in the Périgord Noir, a landscape already steeped in its own layers of history, caves, cave paintings, and memory. There, we continued developing an AI-powered design and storytelling workflow that we're pretty excited about, where we're blending concept art, narrative, and digital tools into something that lets us move seamlessly between page, screen, and sound. It's part cinema, part architecture, and part literature. And so with that, I want to focus on that third piece, the literature part, because part of what we've done here is developed a platform where it's easy to imagine not just the future of cities, but also their past and their present. You want to reimagine a coastal community in Mississippi, or you want to reimagine what Babylon looked like in the 3rd century BCE. That's what we can quickly mock up, prototype, and explore from a world building perspective. And so that process has become the seed for something larger, this new literary line I'm calling premium pulp fiction. These are going to be stories that span genres: historical, speculative futurism, noir, science fiction, but all grounded in the same philosophy of pulp fiction with depth, narrative with muscle, fiction that is as cinematic on the page as it is in your imagination. So when I talk about world building here, I'm talking about more than ruins or futuristic skylines. I'm talking about storytelling practice, a way of imagining that moves across media, across centuries, and across these genres. And of course, cities are one of our oldest forms of world building, yes, but so are stories. And now, with these tools, we can begin to stitch them together in new ways that feel both ancient and radically new. So, without further ado, what follows is a short 3.5 minute book trailer that introduces this first work of fiction that I'm going to be releasing in early 2026. It's a novel born from my obsession with the ruins of ancient cities, empires, and the human cost of ambition. The title is Ashes of Empire, Ghost Emperor, and it begins in Babylon in 323 BCE, where the body of Alexander the Great lies unburied, already rotting, already unraveling the order of the known world. And if you're listening to this podcast, I encourage you to go to citizen1.world and watch the trailer when you have time. Ghost Emperor will go to press in early 2026 under Premium Pulp Fiction, my new literary imprint. Alongside it, I'll be rolling out other titles already in the pipeline. Here on Substack first is audiobooks, ebooks, and premium pulp paperbacks. You'll be able to subscribe monthly or annually for exclusive access to every forthcoming release. Think of Citizen1.world and Premium Pulp Fiction as more than a Book of the Month club. It's an invitation into the writer's room, into the world-building experience, and gaining a seat at the table as this new literary line starts to take shape in real time. I'm excited to announce that Ghost Emperor will be the first volume in a projected 5-novel saga. And it reimagines the Wars of the Diadochi not as a footnote to conquest, but as a descent into political horror and mythic grief. This is epic saga-scaled history, rich in blood, betrayal, and the slow collapse of a civilization that mistook ambition for divinity. Like Game of Thrones, but without the dragons and greater historical intrigue and betrayal. It's set as a prestige historical epic in the brutal aftermath of Alexander's death as his commanders sought to partition his empire. Generals turn into warlords. Widows become assassins. Embalmers whisper prophecy over a corpse too heavy to move and too sacred to burn. And one truth emerges: the body is the crown, and whoever buries the king inherits the myth. I am really so excited about the years of character work and world building I've been putting into this novel. Queens, scribes, priestesses, and warlords are rendered with psychological precision. Their motives fracture and collide like the empires they're trying to resurrect or destroy. Ptolemy waits and watches from Egypt, not out of melodrama, but necessity. Perdiccas, a historical figure, drags Alexander's embalmed body across hostile terrain from Babylon toward Macedon as both a talisman and a weapon. And beneath them, Babylon groans, a city of dead gods, corrupted omens, and funerals that double as declarations of war. Oracles vanish through temple drains. Queens poison each other under myrrh trees. Every betrayal lands like history itself, cracking wide open. Ashes of Empire, Ghost Emperor doesn't merely depict history, it exhumes it and then it sets it on fire. Chapter 3: Ashes of Empire, Ghost Emperor. Ashes of Empire, Volume 1, Ghost Emperor, by Douglas Stewart McDaniel. Prologue. The Body of the King. Babylon, 323 BCE. Before the Wars of the Diadochi, there was a funeral, sorts. Not a quiet one, not a sacred rite, but the beginning of something far more violent, something that would echo for generations. Alexander, conqueror of the known world, had died without naming an heir. No declaration, no final command, only silence at a body too sacred, too dangerous, too charged with prophecy to be laid to rest. And so the question became not who would rule next, but who would carry the corpse. Perdiccas, closest to the throne, stepped forward first. With Roxana, the widow queen, at his side, and Eumenes, Alexander's loyal secretary, he claimed the regency. He spoke of stability, of holding the empire together. But Babylon was already fracturing, the air thick with incense and ambition. The palace halls crowded with men who had once called each other brothers, now speaking in whispers and drawing up lists. Ptolemy, ever smiling, offered his support for the funeral procession. His allegiance was spoken plainly. His intentions were not. He moved gold into the hands of bodyguards, shifted the route westward, southward, and waited. Olympias, far away in Epirus, lit candles in the temples and sent killers in the guise of priests. She called it purification. Others called it madness. Either way, blood was spilled. And then there was Cassander, watchful, silent, calculating. Not a general, but the son of one. Raised in the shadows of power, he poisoned slowly. Not just men, but memory itself. He erased loyalists, rewrote decrees, and prepared to outlive them all. The body moved, not toward peace, but toward Egypt. The procession, meant to honor the dead, and 2 years in the making, became a campaign of its own. What should have been sacred turned brutal. Perdiccas marched south toward the Nile, determined to take back what had been stolen. But even there, betrayal waited beneath the surface. By the time the fires died down and the dust settled, Alexander's body had vanished from the world stage. Not buried, not burned, installed, half relic, half threat, in a new kingdom built on lies. And still, Roxana watched and waited, her son yet unborn, Alexander's son. She had already removed her rival, already whispered stories of divinity into the ears of those who would listen. The wars would go on. They would wear many masks: honor, vengeance, legacy. But it began here, with a corpse no one could bury, with generals who would not grieve, with a widow who would not break. The first betrayal was the funeral, and the body became the crown.
But Ghost Emperor isn't just about antiquity. Haha, it's also a mirror held up to today. The story of Alexander's corpse, contested, partitioned, dragged across hostile lands, becomes a commentary on contemporary empire and their fractures, on the way great powers unravel into warlords and factions, on how borders are redrawn in blood, and on the slow violence of separation and decline. In that sense, it lives in the same universe as Citizen One, a world asking how we build, how we govern, and how we live together when the center no longer seems to be holding. The succession struggles of 323 BCE echo in our own century, and the lessons are urgent for the future of nations and for the cities where their decline will be most acutely felt. So thank you for listening to the unorthodox Season 2 premiere of Citizen One, exploring our urban future. This is the structure I'll return to every week, like a small book with an introduction, a world-building or storytelling framework, and always an exploration of urbanism and the future of cities. Together, I hope to form a new multiverse of Citizen One, nonfiction, fiction, speculation, and lived reality woven into one unfolding conversation. And I have to say, this means so much to me to finally be back here with you, opening a new season, building on years of work, and sharing stories that stretch from Petra in Jordan to the Gulf Coast, from Alexander's empire to the future of AI in our cities. I don't take your time or your attention lightly. Every download, every share, every note of encouragement has kept this project alive, even through the hardest stretches. And for that, I am deeply, deeply grateful. I'm excited about where this journey is going. The experiments, the fiction, the urban critiques like Waffle House Urbanism, all of it just beginning to take shape. Season 2 will be bolder, more personal, and more unflinching in exploring what it means to build, to imagine, and endure. So, Season 2 begins right here, and I couldn't be more thankful to have you with me. We're just getting started. For show notes, more detail on the 10 places that defy Waffle House Urbanism guide, and the Ghost Emperor trailer drop, join me at citizen1.world and follow the Substack feed. Thank you for joining me.